Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me and see me? Could you please answer in your chat box? All right, great. Hello, everyone. Nice morning, nice day to be with you. I know that someone said that in Aveiro it's a beautiful sunny day. I think it's a sunny day all over the country. On APPI's behalf, I want to welcome you and wish you, first of all, that you are safe and keeping positive in these challenging times we are facing. And thank you for joining APPI first ever online conference. In some minutes, we will start our first session with the speaker, Vanessa Esteves. She's already here with us. It will take 13 minutes and then we'll have 15 minutes plus to answer some questions that you may like to pose to the speaker regarding the content of the session. So, as you may have already noticed, you are only able to see and hear us, both APPI member and the speaker. Just a quick reminder, if the speaker asks you a question, please type it on the chat box as you are doing now. And if you want to ask a question to the speaker and regarding the session, you can go to the icon Q&A, question and answer, and write your answer there, okay? So both icons, Q&A and chat boxes, are on the bottom of your screen or at the top of the screen. And when you click on them, they will open as a small window each, okay? Attention that we will need to open the Zoom room for every new session. And please enter just 5 minutes before, okay? 5 minutes. And now, with no further delays, I know we still are on time, and no further delays, we will listen to Vanessa Esteves and her suggestions about doing things in a whole different way. So Vanessa, it's not the stage is yours, it's the screen is yours, and please take it away.
Right, hello everyone, how are you? I'm going to ask you if you could type in the chat box if you can hear me okay, just so that I feel more relaxed that everything is fine. I do warn you that I have 2 little dogs and I have asked them to be very quiet, but they seem to have their own life and their own will, so I can't actually promise you that they're not going to make a noise. Now, before we start, I have a little question to ask you. You know us teachers, we always have questions. And so I've prepared a poll for you. I wonder if you could just click the answer that's true for you. And today you can only choose one answer. So if various are true for you, choose the one that's the most true for you. Okay? Let's see. Challenges is winning by far. Redirection also seems to be getting some love, as does time with those I love. A bit of saudade I see as well. Oh, I see there's somebody else like me, a few extra kilos, and some fear and anxiety as well. Hope's not looking too good though, right? Let's see. Oh, isn't this amazing? Look at the speed that these answers are coming in. But challenge seems to be winning today, right? Let's have a look. There's still about 30 people who haven't voted. If you haven't voted, can you please click on the answer that's the most true for you? Right, let's have a look. Oh, it seems that the answer today is challenges. So we're all living quite difficult times, or at least different times, with many, many challenges. And I think it's absolutely amazing that we can be together today. So I'm going to stop the poll today so you can see. I think hope is that challenges are definitely going to win. And I'm going to move on to sharing my screen with you. So let's have a look and see if you can see it properly. Again, I'm just going to ask you to type in the chat box if you can see it, just so that I know that all is well. Right? Okay. Right, so I'd like to start off today by asking, or by telling you really, what I'm grateful for. So this is my view today, and I took this photo about 10 minutes ago, and I'm really grateful for three things at the moment. First of all, I'm grateful that I'm alive, and everybody that I know and love is alive too. Some are healthier than others, but we're all doing okay. I'm also very grateful that APPI has remembered to organize something to help us be together, really, and to help us share this passion and love for teaching. So a big, big thank you to APPI for having organized that for us. I'm really, really grateful to all the work that today implies for you. And lastly, perhaps, I'm also very grateful that, well, I get to still have a job, have food on my table, and, well, basically work every day. And although we take these things for granted, I think that the present times has shown us that this is not necessarily true. Sometimes, well, life has this way of surprising you. Right, I wonder if you could type in the chat box what you are grateful for so I could have a look and see. So that's me. What about you? What are you grateful for today? Health? Oh yeah. Your family? Yeah, life, family and health. Sanity? Oh, I love that. Being alive? Me too. Being pregnant? Well, that's exciting. A baby's on the way. A great sunny day, having a job. Isn't this amazing that we're typing in the same kinds of things? So, if nothing else, COVID has brought us some redirection, right? Okay, now are you ready to start working? Today, I've called my talk Doing the Same Thing in a Whole Different Way. So I hope you're ready for some thought today. Now, my first question is, right, we've gone back to teaching, we've gone into online teaching synchronously and asynchronously, but what are we doing again in this crazy time? What are we doing in our classrooms? I wonder if you could type in your chat box what you're doing with your kids. What is it that we've set ourselves to do? What's our challenge? What's our aim? So keeping in contact with them, yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Making sure that they don't forget what they've learned, right? Readjusting, showing care. I love that, Arne. Yeah, contacting them, connecting, trying to engage them, giving them feedback, keeping them interested, right? Showing connectivity, bonding. Wow, fantastic ideas there. Being available, ensuring that they're having fun while learning. That's amazing. Keeping them focused, making them laugh, creating a safe place. Wow, all great things. Well, I would say that what you've been doing is basically implementing the perfil. And let's take a closer look how. Well, I think that one of the things we've been doing really is using information to communicate or keep them motivated or keep them interested in learning, right? We've also been thinking critically to adapt and learn to the current circumstances. Wouldn't you agree? Also, we've constantly been solving problems. Have you noticed all those emails that you get saying, teacher, I can't do this, or teacher, this won't work, or teacher, can you help me? And it's sort of been a bit of survival, really, staying alive. Yeah, a sea of emails, many as well as saying. This means that we've all been increasing our techie know-how. So if we didn't have very much, we've increased on it. If we already had, we've looked into other things. Our students have helped us learn new things, and it's really been a learning journey. We've also been trying to support our students, as you mentioned, but I'd add our colleagues as well. I don't know if you're in my shoes where you get people or colleagues and friends sending you emails. Do you have an idea for this? Can you help me? Can you remind me how to do that? So we've really created a community of learning. Marisa, yeah, I've seen on Facebook, you've mentioned that before. We've also been working on becoming more autonomous. So trying to survive ourselves before we ask people for their help, right? And I think we've also been trying to keep sane physically and mentally. And yeah, I admit COVID has brought me a few extra kilos, which I'll have to work on to get rid of afterwards. And I think that basically what we've been trying to do is what you typed in the chat box just now, exposing our students to different mediums to help them learn. So we've been doing a pretty good job. And can you pat yourself on the back, because you've done an amazing job to keep things going, and you should celebrate that now. And the housework, Marisa is saying, yeah, I didn't put that there because that's, well, the perfil de loon might be the sensibly daadstedke to keep everything nice and clean. Now, the question I ask is, we've been working really intensively, have our students as well? And I'd like you to hold that thought for me. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Now, why have we been doing this? Why have we been working this hard? Well, the answer really is because we have to. And we have to because of the world that we live in nowadays. So we know it's a world of technological progress. We know it's a world of continuous change. Just as you get used to something, something else changes. We also know that we're constantly needing to adapt. And the last few months have taught us that, if we had forgotten it. But we're also living in a world where we need to be interculturally aware, and we need to be responsible for the environment and for the planet that we live in. Because if we don't look after it, pretty soon there won't be a planet to live on. So that means that what we're really doing is, oh, I'm sorry, this is my neighbor's dog going up for a walk. And every morning when this happens, my own dogs go a bit crazy. Right now, the reason why we've been working this hard is that we know that it's our job to prepare our students for the marketplace. We know that sooner or later they're going to leave us and they're going to face this exciting world with lots of different challenges. Maria, thank you for telling me that you're okay with my dogs, because I will confess that that was stressing me out a bit. Now, when our students do go into this challenging world, what is it that they are going to have to do? What are employers going to be looking out for? In other words, what skills do we need to guarantee that they have in order to stay safe and employed? Well, I'd like to share the 9 essential skills that employers have been looking out for. You'll be amazed or surprised, or perhaps not surprised, perhaps even relieved to know that the top skill employers look for nowadays are writing skills. Now that's pretty amazing. That means it's still important to write well. The second skill is reading. In other words, we still need to do the same things that we've been doing for quite a while now. That's still very valued in the marketplace. Numeracy is also valued. So what does this mean? This means that we're speaking about the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's still important, and that's the basis of everything else. But this is not enough. In other words, if you don't have this, you won't get the job. But if you only have this, you won't get the job either. So what are they looking out for? Well, they're looking out for the way that students or workers know how to use documents, and know how to use documents in order to learn and solve problems and to communicate with others. So knowledge is not just about me, what I know, but knowledge is about working with others to do what exactly? Well, to think, and to think about what? Think about new ways of doing things for the company. Think about new products that the company might need. Think about new clients. In other words, thinking about innovating and making sure that the world is sustainable and that the company makes a profit. Now, this inevitably implies using computers. And I'm not speaking about using computers to play those lovely online games that they love playing. You know which ones I mean. But I am speaking about using computers to learn. And if COVID has taught me one thing, it is that not all students are digitally literate. And so I don't know about you, but I've got questions like, how do you do a screenshot when I've said, oh, just do a screenshot and send me the screenshot as proof that you've been there? So these are pretty basic things which our students haven't mastered yet, right? And then basically what employers are really worried about is continuous learning. In other words, learning throughout life, and not just learning for a test or learning for a presentation, but learning to stay up to speed with everything that we need to do. So that means that it's our job at school to train a learner who never stops learning, who loves learning, who's curious, who is proactive rather than reactive. Oh, I see a few of you are also saying that your students don't have the necessary computer skills. Yeah. Right, so what does this mean? This means that the 21st century learner that our employers are looking for are learners who are excellent communicators. But also excellent collaborators and excellent creators. So you can see that that's a sort of a pyramid of skills that they need to have. You'll notice that they haven't added their excellent masters of content. We do need to know the content, but the content isn't our end product anymore, right? So what does this mean for us English teachers? Well, it means that we need to be teaching and creating learners to the power of 3. In other words, they have 3 essential superpowers. First superpower, well, they're able to use their English to communicate their thoughts and feelings. So English is a tool to communicate what I think and what I know with the rest of the world. And English is not a tool to show off my grammar. That's not really the end point. Then we're also worried about learners who can use their English to get other people to help transform their ideas into practical products. In other words, Annabella, yep, I can see your names. So don't worry, you can keep on typing because I know who you are. Right, as I was saying, we're using our English to get others to help us when we don't have the skills that it takes to get the job done. And that's why in the 21st century classroom, we say that there's no copying, but there is collaborating. Now, this is true when we are creating a product. It's not true when we are testing content, because as you know, and as I know, there's still a lot of copying that goes on in the classes, right? Then we're going to be using English to create products. In other words, not just to regurgitate content, but to take the content and the skills that we know to actually create something new. And this is pretty cool. Wouldn't you agree? We're actually using English to change the world around us to a bigger or smaller degree, depending on the area that we're working on. So this really means that our job now is to teach in a slightly different way. We still need to teach that content. Remember, the top skills that employers value is writing, reading, and arithmetic. So the content is still important. If you don't know content, you can't really do anything else. But then we also need to be teaching parallel skills that makes that content come to life. And this is the difference between studying for the test and knowing everything on the day, or studying for the test, and 2 weeks later when the teacher asks me something, I still remember it. Now, we've all given tests where students ace them, and then the next week we ask them a question that was in the test and they don't remember it. And that's why content is simply not enough. Right, Carmen? You agree as well, right, Benedita? Okay, so that's all good and well, and that's the end of my theory today. I'd now like to move on to just a few very practical suggestions that will get you thinking about how we transform this theory into practice in the classroom. Now, I'm going to start off by asking you if you can type in the chat box if you teach young learners. So I've got 2 examples to show you, one example for younger learners and one example for older learners. So I see that there are a few young learners, young learner teachers here. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a challenge for you. If you teach young learners, have a look at the activity as it is and think about your students, thinking about whether you could do it as it is or not. If you're teaching older learners, and I see that that's true for Anna Isabel, then Anna, I'm going to ask you to look at this idea and to think of how you could tweak it to cater for your older learners' needs. Or could you use the same idea but with different content? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Right, so what are we going to do? Well, let's imagine that today my target vocabulary in my synchronous or asynchronous lesson is food. And I've shown you just a page out of the course book that we're working with. And that could be any vocabulary that you need to teach. Now, as you can see, the course book presents the vocabulary and then works students through the vocabulary so that they're able to remember it, right? Now, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because, remember, our first step is mastering content. Only if we master content can we then use the content to develop skills. So working on all of these worksheets that, many of them come with the course books, others we see online, or we use different games to give the students the practice. This is still very, very valid. Unless you know the content, well, you really won't be able to do very much, okay? Now, the question is it enough to only know this content? What do you think? Perhaps you could type in the chat box for me. Yeah, I think it's a unanimous answer. Well, it is enough if you want them to know the content for the test. But it's not enough if you want them to develop skills with that content. So what could you do? Well, you have to remember that writing and reading is important, but then you have to challenge yourself to think of what other skills could you use that content to come up with. And I've just seen this amazing idea. Somebody's written, I think that's Carla writing, well, they could come up with a recipe, and Lilia is saying in the real context. And I couldn't agree with you more. Whatever activity you think of next, I would challenge you to think of these 3 questions. Does this activity, Carla, your recipe, does that involve and challenge students to communicate with others? Yes or no? And then weigh it. Does it challenge them to collaborate with others in order to create a product? And does it challenge the students to create products for others? In other words, I am making this for you with the English that I know. Right, and this, as Annabelle is saying, can be applied to any level. Now, before you get all crazy and start inventing all these activities, take a minute, breathe, so you'll stay calm, cool, and collected. And think about the student on the other end of the screen. And I think that this COVID business has sometimes made us forget that they are children who don't need to spend their whole day in front of the computer. They do need to learn, but there are other ways to learn than spending the whole day doing fichinhas. Remember, fichinhas are important to get that content practiced and mastered, but they're not the end term, right? So Christina is saying, oh, a student could give us the recipe and we could all make it at the same time, especially if it's a yummy recipe. Okay. Now, what does that mean? That means that I am teaching a person. So perhaps a very simple activity that you could get the children to do that's not as complicated as cooking a recipe would be to get the children to take photos of themselves interacting with that word. So you can see these students are eating cake. And at a very, very basic level, the students could just label the picture with that word, cake. And yes, we've all been eating a lot of cake recently. Or if you'd like to extend the language use a bit further, you could do what this little girl is doing, saying that I like soup. And that was my target language for that lesson. In other words, I'm taking the content in the book that is meaningless and has no life of its own, and I'm giving the students power to create something from that content. Now, if you have issues with parents who don't want to make their children's photos public, then they could go on to the internet and choose a photo that they like of that content. So there's still a little bit of themselves in the task, and there's still personalization in the task. And so the vocabulary isn't just meaningless. They're actually seeing how they use that vocabulary in their everyday lives. And who knows? Perhaps they'll then be able to remember it better. Marisa's got a good idea. Perhaps they could cover their faces or just wear their COVID masks, because with their COVID masks, it's difficult to recognize them. Right. Do you like the idea? Do you think that you could use this in your classroom? Would you type in the chat box for me? Yeah, so it's a very, very simple idea that gets them to practice the vocabulary without necessarily doing another ficina. Of course, they need to know what the words mean before they choose the words that they'd like to do. Now, what about if you are teaching teenagers? And just now I saw quite a few of you type in the chat box that you are teaching teenagers. Well, teenagers do a little bit more complicated language. And this is one of the things that I've been working on recently. So there was a text in the book, and what I needed them to do was to read and to interpret the text. I think that that might ring a bell for you too. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that the first step, and the book is working very, very well on this, is getting the students to understand the content. So why is this task in the book? So that they'll do the writing and reading skills that our employers value. And this means that they need to read for gist, they need to read for detail, and of course, they need to answer the comprehension questions. Now, again, I ask you, is this enough? Well, it is enough to get the interview, but it isn't enough to get the job. So again, I need to start thinking about what post task or what extension task, I don't like the word post, I prefer the word extension, can I use to get the kids to do that balanced hybrid learning? Now they know the content, so let's give them a task that works with skills. And perhaps something that you could do is to think about a task that and helping them create something for others. Now, I've chosen a tool that I've been using for years now. It's called Glogster. It's not new, but it still works wonders when it comes to skills. Have you ever used this tool in your classroom, or are you familiar with this tool? Yeah, so a few no's. Let's see if I can help you love it as much as I do. Manuel is saying yes. Okay. Now, Glogster is absolutely fantastic because it allows you to create a mini presentation with different medium. In other words, photos, text, and video. And now what I could ask the children to do, if you have a look, you'll see that, oops, sorry, I've gone, oh dear, this is going let me just go back, sorry. If you notice, the text was about my bedroom, right? So now what I can do is use Glogster to help the students personalize the text. And so what could they do on this glog? I've taken a screenshot because of the internet connection. It was simply too dangerous to give you the real thing. But what a glog allows you to do is to upload a picture, so you can see that in the background. Then it allows you to create little bubbles. It allows you to write text, and it allows you to make and upload a video or upload an already existing video. So my challenge to my students was, let's start at a word level. Now, why are we doing word level? Well, because that's the way we learn language. First, we think of words, then we think of sentences, and finally, we use text. So the first thing I asked them to do was, give me a photo of your room or a room that you like. If you don't want to share your own room, that's fine. And first of all, upload that picture. Then think of adjectives to describe that room. And so this was the first thing that they did. And I've shown you just an example. This is the example that I used to show them what I wanted them to do. And I always do this so that they know how to get it right. And remember, Carol Reed, once in one of her talks, said to us or put forward the idea that we need to develop ideas in the classroom that allow us to catch students at getting it right. So they've done the adjectives. Next, I said, right, so now that we know the words that we want to know to speak about our rooms, I have one of two challenges for you, or both, if you want to take them both on. We're going to write a poem about our room. And you'll see the example that I've put on for them. It's not a very difficult poem because they're just writing sentences at a time. Or if you don't want to do a poem, then you can film a YouTube video, pretend you're your favorite YouTuber, and you give us a little tour of your room. And I went online and chose one of these top teen YouTubers who's done this for them, and gave them that example. So the students start off from a word level, and they can go into a sentence level by just making a sentence poem, or they can go into a text level by actually making the video, right? And once they've done that, they upload that for me and for everybody else to have a look at. Now, if you look at this, let me ask you a question. Is there a possibility of my students copying this task or not? Would you type in the chat box? Could they copy this? Or for everybody else? Well, yes, it could be interactive. So you could get the students to do this as a group or as pairs. It doesn't have to be an individual activity. Right, so as you can see, they can be inspired from my example, but they can't copy it exactly. They have to personalize the content, and this is what I want them to do. Now, once we did this, I said, well, poetry is only good if it's shared with other people. Poets don't write poetry so that they can just post it online. But poets write poetry so that they can share it with people. Now, before I go on to that, I want to show you another way of sharing work. This is not about the same task, but it's actually my students' work about a different task that we did. And if you don't like Glogster, you can always use Padlet. And what Padlet allows students to do is if they write something, then they can post it online and other students can have a look and comment it. So it becomes interactive. And I use Padlet a lot because they write their little paragraphs or their ideas of the text. In this case, they read a text and they just had to write what was the main idea that they got from that text and what was the main idea that they'd share with somebody else. And then the other students comment that idea and help them correct some little slips that they might have. So Padlet is also a very, very valuable tool. Right now, once they'd created their poems, I said, hey guys, we have an asynchronous lesson next week, and your task is to organize a poetry session. Now, what you need to do is you need to organize the platform. You need to invite whoever you want to come online and listen to our poems. So that could be your parents, that could be a friend that doesn't go to our school, that could be a friend in another class, that could be anybody that you want to come and listen to your poems. And then you need to organize a voting session so that we can vote for the best poem of all. And the kids said to me, oh, how do we do that? I said, well, we've been using Zoom. You know how Zoom works now. So there's this wonderful thing called YouTube. It's got these fantastic tutorials. It teaches you everything. Go out and learn. Now, I will be available on Friday from 5 to 6 for a practice session because I don't want to be embarrassed in case things don't work very well. So I'd like you to, just make me not stress out so I don't get horrid huggish. And then in that practice session, we had sort of like a dress rehearsal and we were ready for the real thing on Monday. Now, once they did that, they had to organize the voting poll, much as I organized a poll for you this morning. And how did they do that? Well, at the bottom of Zoom, there's this little icon that says polling, and you're able to then type in a question and type in the different answers. And as you saw today, then it gives you the answer or the different possibilities, and you can see the results online. If you're not using Zoom because you're using Google Classroom or something else, then you can always use an online survey like Mentimeter or lots of others that, lots of different apps that you can use to do this. Right, so the kids came online, they read their poems, and the participants voted for the best poem. And then we decided to award that person with a prize. And I sent them a mystery box with a prendinha to their home address. Now, you know what they say, the way to a student's heart is through their tummy. So I brought them a bar of chocolate, and I wrote my favorite poem and put it in the box to share with them. And when they got the box through the post, they were excited as hell and shared that in the lesson. So what were we doing? Well, we are looking at the content. We're still using those words that we learned to speak about our bedroom. And we are using technology, but we aren't using technology to do something bonitinho or just fun. We are using technology to actually learn and develop concrete skills. We are using technology to communicate with others. And yes, we are using technology to create something to share with others. Now, I think you can imagine how proud the students felt when they saw their poll and they saw people voting for their poems, even though they might not have won, because we can only have one winner. So yes, as Marisa is saying, they don't even notice that they're working on all these deep skills, because these deep skills are just part of the task, and a task that they can't copy. Now, the kids then said to me, Vanessa, this poetry session was really good, but we only shared our poems with the people that we already know. Perhaps, you know lots of people, perhaps you could get us to share these poems with other people who are more objective. Because, João won, but perhaps he had his aunt and his mother and his sister and his girlfriend voting for him. So this might not have been the least biased session. And so what I did is I went online and did some research to look for sites where you can actually upload your poems. And there is a fantastic site that I'd like to share with you today. It's called Family Friend Poems, and I've put the URL over here in case you want to jot it down. And basically what it does is that it organizes monthly poetry contests with real prizes on different topics. And you can see some of the topics here in the sidebar. And so what you do is you upload your poem, you compete, and then you can go in and actually write a review for the different poems. So again, they are practicing their English to communicate with others, right? Yeah, Paula, it's true. Sometimes they just vote for the best students, even though their work isn't the best. That's true. And it is important that we speak to them before and make them aware of this. So we are now at the process of creating a new set of poems on our new topic. And these poems have to be super cool, because these poems will, well, we're going to have a first eliminatoria in another poetry competition. And then our best 3 poems in class will be submitted to the family and friends poems. And so kids are, well, the kids are very excited at this moment, whether they'll be able to write good poems or not. So as you can see, what we really are doing is going the extra mile. We're taking the content that we need to teach as English teachers, and we're mixing it with the skills that our employers are actually looking for in the global marketplace. So my time is almost up, which means that I need to ask the question. So what are we doing again now, teaching kids online in this pandemic? Well, I would say that we're creating 21st century learners to the power of 3. What else? And on this note, I'd like to say, glory, glory, this is the end of my story. So thank you so much for coming online and being with me today. It's been absolutely amazing to be able to just share a few ideas with you. I hope that you've enjoyed the ideas, and I hope that you can use them as a springboard to create tasks of your own that allow the students to communicate, collaborate, and create products for everybody else. And I want to say thank you so much for your feedback in the chat box. It's really helped make my day, and you should know that. Now, I think that we have about 15 minutes for questions. I don't promise to know all the answers, but I do promise to try and answer them. So let me have a look in the chat box. And I see that in the chat box we have, well, Maria Cardozo's question. Maria, are you there? Maria's saying, what's the best online site for resources? Well, Maria, what kind of resources do you mean? Do you mean like Fishinglish, or do you mean learning videos, or do you mean, what exactly do you mean? Because there are lots of different sites for different resources. My favorite site is YouTube. I get a lot of inspiration from YouTube because I have a look at some of the videos that are online, or sometimes short little trailers for films, and I use a lot of that to then come up with ideas for my students. I don't look so much for sites with content things. I look for things which allow kids to develop skills. So this family and friends poem is my latest favorite because it's a real world context in which the students can actually produce something for a real audience. I'm really into that now. So this is what I've been doing and looking for things like this. If you're looking for controlled practice, then one of my favorite sites is and will always be the British Council site. They've got a lot of grammar practice there. They've got different little videos. They've got vocabulary worksheets. They've got lots of things, right? Maya's saying, can I combine these learning tools with Edmodo? Yeah, I think you could easily, right? Another thing that I like using with students are apps or technology that allows them to create things like brainstorming technology. So if you Google tools for brainstorming, you'll get 5 or 6 or 7 different possibilities, and then they can read the text and just brainstorm their main ideas. I also love those apps where they can create word searches. So when I teach them new vocabulary, I ask them, your homework is to create a word search for us students in the class, and then you send them your or email with the prendinha that you've created for them. They do it and then they write a little review back. Susanna is saying that readworks.org is also a great tool. Englishexercises.org. Constantia, I presume that that has a lot of practice in there, right? Quizzes, oh, definitely. And Kahoot as well, right? Wordwall. So as you can see, that it's limitless. If you want just basic inspiration, you can just type online, great tools to learn English, and you'll see different suggestions as well, right?
Vanessa,
yeah?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There are some other questions on the Q&A box.
I was trying to look at that, but
yes.
I can't see that.
Well, for instance, Alexandra Giada asked, how did you use the videos asked to the students?
What do you mean? How did I use the videos?
Asked to the students.
The videos that I showed you today?
Alexandra, can you just answer to us, please?
Alexandra, can you type in the chat box what do you mean? Many times, instead of giving students questions to answer about the video, I do the opposite. I give them a video and say, well, this is a video I'd like to use with sétimo C, but I don't have time to make the questions. So could you make the questions that I could then use for those students? And they love that. Of course, it's more difficult to make questions than it is to answer questions, right? And they make things for me. They make a lot of my materials to share with other students. And then when students use them, I get the students to write a little review and share. So I really like that video, but this question was difficult or something else like that. Sonia, I haven't seen Alshandra's comment here. Did you?
No. And we have another question from Sofia Nobre.
Yeah, I was looking at that now. Can you give some tips to use with the students who won't be able to do an activity as the one that you presented? Sophia, do you mean that they wouldn't be able to do the activity because they don't have access to technology? Or do you mean that they wouldn't be able to do that because they don't have the skills? If you mean they don't have the skills, then instead of transforming this as a individual activity, what I do is make it a pair work activity or a group work activity. And this is important for me because I don't think that you need to be excellent at English. You might be excellent at making a great PowerPoint. You might be excellent at filming the video, even though you make some pronunciation mistakes. So I get them to pair with each other. There's one tool that I absolutely love. It's called Trello. I didn't present that to you today, but Trello allows you to organize your project. So you get like little cards that you make. On Monday, we have to look through the book and get the words. On Tuesday, we will try to write the text. And then the different students can go online and work on the different tasks, and you can see how the group work is coming along. So it means that even though they aren't together and can't be together, they are together whenever they want to online, and they can pick up from the last bocadinho of work that their colleagues have done. So you could do it in that way. If you mean that they can't do it because they don't have technology, I think that you could get them to go back to paper and just make a paper presentation and then take a photo and put it online. So, you know, I think creativity is the solution here. You don't have to use technology all the time. Technology is just a tool to get students creative, right? That's the way I see it anyway. Okay, Alshenda is saying you asked the students to make a poem or a video, and the video I meant. Okay, so what I did was I said, make a video tour of your room, right? And of course, if they are just starting to learn English, they can only say a sentence in English. They can't actually make the whole video in English. So I asked them to make a Plinglish video in which they'd have to have at least a sentence to start what they were saying and to end what they were saying. But the middle with the clever little comments could be in Portuguese. And I'm worried about the internet. That's why I can't share this with you today. But it was really, really funny to see that some of them tried to imitate the way I speak Portuguese. So they had their sentence, and then they were trying to speak the middle part in Portuguese as they thought an English person would. So they were saying things like, isto é o meu quarto, like that. And that I thought, wow, this is really amazing. This is creative. Now, once they've made all these videos, Alexandra, We posted the links on Padlet. Everybody went in, watched the videos, and then we made a competition, just as we did with the poetry competition. They watched all the videos, they voted for the best video. And then just as we had a poetry session, one of our synchronous sessions was going to the cinema with, and then the winners of that, of the videos. And we watched them, and then we learned how to write a review and just practiced a little bit of baby writing in that way. So the videos were a springboard to make the content come to life. But it was always about our work and giving each other feedback on our work. So it's not just making a video for the teacher to see, it's making a video for the whole class to see and then react to in some way. Right. Okay, let me see. Louisa's saying, are we really doing the same thing? I believe that we're teaching them differently, but also different things. Louisa, I think we are doing the same thing because we are still teaching content. What we aren't doing is doing it in the same way, because we're now mixing content with different skills. So that's why I speak about a learner to the power of 3. The learner still needs to know the content, but nowadays it's not enough to just know the content. We also need to work on skills. And that's why we're bringing content to life. That's why we're making content personal. And this is really the spirit of the flexibilisation curriculaire, if you actually look at it. It's all about helping you learn things that make sense to you and that you will use as a learner, rather than just learning things for the exam national that you will have, or the prova, or the test, or whatever it is. So I do think we are doing the same thing, but I don't think that we're doing it in the same way, right? Okay, La Salette is saying, I want to ask my students to do a video about sustainability, but this is the first time of the world and I don't know how to do it. Okay, so what I would say, La Salette, is go onto YouTube and Google videos about sustainability, and then have a look at different types of videos and use an example, show them an example. And you can say, well, this example has been done by professionals. I don't expect you to make such a fantastic example, but it's just there for inspiration. Then go onto YouTube and Google how to make a video on Windows or how to make a video on iOS. And then you should be able to get tutorial videos in English, or if you prefer, if you're working with weaker students, in Portuguese, that actually teach them how to make that. Watch that with them in class, and then invite the students to give each other feedback, right? Because lots of them already make videos and TikToks and all of these things. And then after that, after you've discussed how to do the task, let them do the task. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you only wait until the deadline to watch their videos. I would recommend that you have like breaks in between where they present what they've already done, so that then you can get you can help them, or if you don't know how to help them technologically, you can get the other more competent literate students to help the ones that are struggling. And you'll see, Lasai, that it very quickly becomes a competition to make the best video. And they start learning how to put things like little bubbles and, to do all these overlays and all these effects that they see online. But there are lots of YouTubers now that you can use to inspire the kids to make their own videos. Remember, it's not copying, it's collaborating nowadays. So we're using other people's examples to spark our own creativity. Okay, right. I wonder if we have a few more questions. I wonder, Sonia, can we have another extra minute or so?
We have one last question of Maria João Cardoso, and then we could stop if you don't mind, okay?
No, so Maria João was saying, another thing I've challenged my students to do was a news bulletin. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I've challenged them to do that as well. And it's absolutely amazing to see the kind of work that they come up with. And that's a really, really great way to get them to do something meaningful. I would say that the news bulletin that they have to do should be about local news. So something in their community that, they think think people would be interested to find out more about. And then that takes the power of language even further, because they're using their English to tell the world about something amazing that happened in their community or a problem that they need help with. But that definitely is a fantastic idea. I love that. So you get 100 likes from me. I don't know what about I don't know if you get likes from anybody else watching the webinar today. Perhaps you can post a like if you have a like, but that certainly is a fantastic idea. Right, everyone. So thank you so much for being online today. And I'd like to thank Sonia, who's online with us today, representing APPI. Sonia, from all of us to you, a very, very big thank you for organizing this. I must say that when I thought about this year not having the APPI conference in May, I felt like there was a hole in my life. There was something missing. I wouldn't see my friends. I don't know. I really look forward to the APPI conference this year. And I know that this is not exactly the same.
Yeah, it's
but
a flavor.
It's the closest thing.
Yeah.
And I must say that I still do feel the love and the excitement for teaching, and that's what keeps me going. So a big thank you for thinking of this idea and for organizing it and for giving us a day in your life, because I know that this is a lot of work, and I think we all know that's a lot of work. And I want you to know that we're very grateful. And I would challenge everybody watching the webinar now to just post their own thank you, so you can feel the love that we feel for you. On
Thank
this
you
note,
so much.
I'm going to say goodbye for everybody and stop sharing my screen and sound. Keep safe, wear those masks, and good luck on Monday if you're going back to school.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa, so much for your fantastic contribution and session. There were some really, really interesting ideas. For instance, I really enjoyed the idea of using Glogster to create a project. I hope everyone enjoyed as well. Well, it seems like yes, because the participants are posting some nice messages. Thank you all also for sharing your ideas too on the chat box. So lots of participants have shared some links with us. So on behalf of APPI, Vanessa, again, thank you so much for your contribution today. Now it's time for a break. See you in 30-40 minutes, okay? Thank you all. I will close this session and we will have to come back again in 30 or 40 minutes. Thank you so much. See you.